Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk with you about Vedic astrology in particular, and also what astrology will mean for you in the upcoming weeks, and maybe even into the end of July. I do this show every week, and I do it mainly for Greater New Bedford cable access, but it's also part of my YouTube channel. So please, if you are reviewing this on YouTube, subscribe, like, and click the notification bell. It's a small step for you, but it means a lot to me, and it means a lot to the growth of uh, this channel, and I think the growth of astrology. Okay, so um, I'm just yesterday I did a presentation for Saptarishi Astrology. That event is still ongoing. It'll be going on until Tuesday of this week. That's today's 16th, 17th, 18th. And this is a group, I believe it's the largest online event of astrologers ever attempted. So we had 90 plus astrologers presenting. We have a few more astrologers presenting. This is being done under the auspices of a man who's dedicated a large part of his existence to astrology, to promoting Vedic astrology. And that's not me. That's a gentleman named Sunil John. And Sunil John has been really uh, uh, wonderful in bringing together different schools of astrology, both from India, the Middle East, around the world, and sharing them in an open forum. Kepler College has done similar things, and so essentially, what we're looking at is creating, and there have been others in the past, but essentially, what we're trying to do is to restore, um, and I say we, you know, I'm including myself in a very small way, is we're trying to restore a lot of knowledge which has been um, forgotten, lost, um, overridden over the past 5,000 years or so, and trying to reestablish it and present it to an audience. And it's an intense and deep study, so it's not really it's not something where you look and say, oh, you're a Leo, so this means X, Y, and Z. Although that can be true, but astrology is much, much more than that. It's There are a lot of component elements to astrology. There are a lot of different traditions uh, in India and around the world, and some people would say it's a good thing it got suppressed. Other people would say, well, if we're trying to figure out events, it's always a good idea to keep your eye on every single element you can use to see what's going to happen, or to see what factors are either opposing you or helping you out. Okay, so I think this is a worthwhile study. Uh, I was a skeptic before I actually started um, practicing astrology, before I started researching astrology. I was interested in it in my early 20s, and then, like a lot of other things in your 20s, you cast it out and you come back to it after you've had some experiences, and you say, why did this happen? This shouldn't have happened, or why did this happen, at this particular point in time? Excuse me. My face is a little itchy. It's dry here. And so I think one of the things that this study has meant to me um, is humbling, because we realize we're not really all that. We have we have control over our destiny, and we should exert as much control over our destiny as we possibly can. Okay, that's why we're here. Okay, to be truthful, it's not to all of a sudden say, well, I'll, I'll do whatever. it takes to get by and not try at all. That's essentially, I'm going to say it deliberately. That's lazy. Okay. I think we're put here to to basically we're given a certain set of tools so we can't build um, so but we need to figure out which tools we have and which tools we lack and how to get the tools we need in order to build the life we want. Okay, so and sometimes there'll be certain indicators that you're going in the wrong direction or you're going in the right direction. And sometimes events happen which seem like, oh God, that was horrible. Like, why did that happen to me? Which end up being good events. There are certain other events which end up, just being really horrible events. And but the key is not to dwell on the horror. It's not to dwell on the negative, but to figure out how you can turn the negative into positive things that can help you in your life path. Okay, so all right, so enough of the lecture. Saptarishi Astrology is currently broadcasting right now. SAPTARISHI. Again, that's SAPTARISHI. And again, I'm affiliated with a lot of other organizations. They're not the only organization I'm affiliated with, but they're current because they're running a big event right now. So that's why I'm promoting them so much. And I like to give a big um, call out to a lot of the astrologers out there who are working so diligently to promote the knowledge and publish and write. And I respect and admire them all. And to learn. This is a field you never stop learning in. So without so that particular introduction out of the way, let's look at the events that are coming our way over the next few weeks. Okay, and we're going to fix the screen. And as you know, I always keep an eye on contemporary events. The screen is not showing. I know it already. I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to try to change. I'm going to stop the share. And let me get up. Okay. All right, it's showing now. So we're going to change the layout. I'm going to go back to a standard page one. And let's get this screen off. I was using this for a lecture yesterday, so don't worry. And we'll change it to New Bedford, Massachusetts. And I'm going to, again, for the purposes of this, okay, so this chart gives us a Virgo rising sign. And again, I'm going to stop the share and make sure it goes up again. Okay, just to be a little bit obsessive because this Zoom sharing can be cantankerous. So that's the only reason I'm doing this. Okay, so we're at a new moon basically right now. So you see that right up there in the corner? The sun and the moon are together. Essentially, we're at what's called um, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the terminology. It's an Ashada moon. Is it's essentially um, as dark as the moon can be. So the moon is not it's receiving virtually no reflected light from the sun. So this is considered a good time to get rid of things, to expunge things, to throw things out. Is a good time over the next couple of days for renewal or renewal of efforts. Um, and it's also given the fact that Saturn is retrograde right now, it's also a good time to go over bad habits, try to get rid of bad habits. Um, and also, I notice when Saturn's like really dominant in a chart, just in terms of the way it works in charts, people get really uh, bitter and angry, but they also get a lot done. So that's, so it has a function, but it doesn't really do it willingly or happily. And we also have kind of a Mars Venus conjunction happening right now. No, there was something that um, I've always said, or not always, but I've said a great deal. And the Venus is a very misunderstood planet in astrology in general and in Vedic astrology in particular. Um, Venus has um, Venus is really the most powerful planet in Vedic astrology. So or in order of power, Rahu and Ketu in the north and south lunar nodes are the most powerful. That dates back to Plotinus, who was Varahamihira's son. Um, and but basically, these are planets that can swallow the sun and the moon, so they're innately powerful. They're innately more powerful than anything else. Then the sun is the most powerful, then the moon is the most powerful because, and again, this is in terms of brightness. So Saturn and K2 are not bright, but they can obscure brightness, so they can swallow up anything. Um, and Venus is the next brightest star in the sky. Venus is also not really a very wimpy planet by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of people tend to, I've heard that expressed, it's kind of a Motosi planet. Um, Venus itself as a planet is hot, is by far the hottest planet in the solar system because of the carbon, because of uh, um, the out of control superheating effect that the atmosphere has on it. So it is temper erupts. It gets really, really angry, but it blows over very quickly. Mars is anger, but it's more strategic anger. It's more calculated. It's more logical. Mars is cooler than Venus is. It's more destructive, but it's cooler. And as you go down in order of strength of the planets, Jupiter's next in line. And then we go down to Mars is next in line in terms of brightness. And then finally Saturn's the darkest planet and the dullest planet. So in terms of natural strength, you have in order of succession Rahu Ketu, although there's an argument as to which is stronger, Rahu Ketu, Sun, Moon, Venus, Jupiter, Mars, Saturn. Oh, I'm sorry, Mars. I'm sorry, Mercury, Mars, Saturn. Mercury's behind Jupiter. So, but Mercury's almost never seen. Mercury's discrimination, so Mercury's almost never seen in the sky. And I know I was forgetting somebody. And basically, whenever you have Venus is also considered to be really the most powerful graha. It's said that only a god can beat Venus um, in terms of uh, in terms of conquering or bravery. So Shiva has to swallow Venus in order to stop him from beating the Devas. and leading the assurers to victory. So there are several cases in which Venus is associated with triumph and war, and so Venus is really an incredibly strong planet in Vedic astrology. Jupiter is strong. Jupiter is wise, but again, if we go according to the Vedic to certain stories, and again, this is differences maker. Venus is the smartest planet usually, except when it gets distracted. Right. So Venus is with Mars right now. So we have Venus and Mars located in Leo. These are both in the signs of the king. So this means that governments are going to be really kind of hot tempered right now. Okay. So they'll work really aggressively to put down opposition to strike out at people. Now this is being blocked to a certain extent by Saturn, and Jupiter is upholds the established order. Okay, it upholds the way things should be. Okay, the way things have been done traditionally. So Jupiter is essentially it's not. This isn't to diminish it, but it's essentially a conformist, not a reform planet. So you have this heat coming both from and at government, from the Venus Mars conjunction. Okay, and Jupiter's aspecting this combination, and Saturn's aspecting this combination. The only planets that aren't aspecting this combination and aren't really involved in this combination at all are Mercury, Sun, and Moon. Okay, so these are dominant planets right now. So this is going to mean we're going to have economic issues come up because Jupiter's with Rahu. There'll be a temptation to misrepresent or confuse people in order to maintain order. Um, this is one reason why we're seeing the revolts in France continue. Okay, the racial issues in France continue, and also um, uh, a lot of um, opposition. Now, again, we're not seeing violence in the streets in the United States, not really, but we are seeing a certain amount of breakdown of norms. That's the Jupiter Rahu conjunction. Um, so, and when I say norms, it's not only traditional uh, norms, traditional societal norms, but also a certain amount of disregard for the law. And that's coming from both sides of the political spectrum, okay, or from all sides of the political spectrum. So you're having a lot of unconventional rules applied, a lot of opposition, a lot of controversy. One thing that I did notice when I was looking at the United States uh, transits and the United States Mahadashas going back to 1776 was that we have we're currently in a major planetary period of Rahu, which is essentially a sign of rebellion. And Rahu Rahu essentially was in Leo when that Mahadasha started. When the United States essentially declared independence from England. The same transit of Rahu at the start of the same Mahadasha occurred around 2015. So I think we're in for about another 8 or 9 years of maybe another. I'm sorry, let's amend that downward. Maybe another 6 or 7 years of conflict in the United States. And when I say conflict, I'm not necessarily talking about armed violence, although I think depending on which Mahadasha we could see that. But I'm really talking about um, attempts to reform or reconfigure the United States government. And that probably won't happen for about another, um, from my estimates, another 7 years or so. But but basically, we will see changes in the United States government structure over the next 7 years. What that means in terms of immediate uh, effect on our lives and effect on the world, again, we're going to see a continuation of this um, effort to reconfigure governments, bring more attention to the struggles of working people, bring more attention to the struggles of people around the world. Um, and this isn't really just in terms of this really isn't a Marxist playbook. You know, it's not really. We're not really looking for uh, a revolutionary overthrow in a classless society. That's not really what this looks like to me. But we are looking for uh, something more akin to a more equitable world financially. So, and when I use the term equity, it's used in a very specific sense by a very specific group of people. This is equity for everybody, not just for certain groups or certain classes. This is equity because there has been, at least from what I can see, um, increasing control. Now, again, this isn't. I have to be careful because then it sounds like I'm talking conspiracy theory, and I'm really not. There is a tendency towards centralization of power in any political structure, in any economic structure. And usually it takes some kind of reform movement in order to stop that and essentially swing the pendulum back a little bit. So so essentially what we have is basically um, a centralization impulse because people who have power want to keep more power, um, and people who don't have power want to have more power. So it's not even. I know it sounds Marxist, but it's really not. It's essentially the one thing I think Marx got absolutely right was thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. So essentially, you have this foundation set up. You have an opposing view, and you have a new structure come out of that particular opposing viewpoint. So and I don't think Marx was the first one to articulate that, but I think he was certainly the one that we remember most because he was most. A lot of the other stuff about historical inevitability I think, is rubbish because I've seen that those trends don't seem to hold true. Um, but but it doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, essentially there are parts that he got absolutely right, and it's and essentially we're seeing that kind of a argument going on right now around the world where people are really suffering from a variety of both climate issues, economic issues, because we don't have really. Hello, Sunil.
Hi, Gary. Hi,
Hi.
hi, hi. I hope I'm not disturbing. Just take a minute.
Okay. All right. So my apologies. I'm gonna stop the share again. and start up again. Right, that was a work-related thing, and hopefully the interruption will not be um, problematic. But basically, um, you have um, you have a lot of alternative ideas coming out right now, and um, I think I think one of the things that you have to keep in mind, one of the things I'm asking you to do um, as people out there is to listen to what people are saying as opposed to um, going in with an ideological mindset. And that includes people on the left and the right, okay? Because I think one of the things that happens, especially when we have the Saturn over the U.S. moon, and also Saturn in Aquarius, is there's this desire for reform. But with Jupiter with Rahu, there's also this anxiety that things will change too much, so we'll be in too much danger if we change things. And usually change involves a certain amount of danger, but not to change usually involves a lot more danger. So if if you have bad circumstances, like let's say you have an economy which is in trouble, with Saturn aspecting Mars and Venus, Saturn aspecting Jupiter, there's potential for um, recession. Definitely, there's a potential for um, a lot of people suffering around the world. Climate issues um, certainly have to be addressed, um, but how it's done, how intelligently it's done, is another matter. And getting angry and blowing off steam temporarily will not do it. Closing off discussions will not accomplish lasting change because as soon as people who oppose the change you want get into power, guess what? Guess what? Those changes will be rolled back. So I think one of the things you want that is a large part of any political system is essentially the art of compromise, the art of listening, understanding, and not insisting on my way is the right way. It has to be done this way. There are certain things obviously we all agree on. Murder is a bad thing. You know, theft is a bad thing. Okay, but these are like common things, and uh, you don't want to get locked into ideology, and this is a problem with the Saturn. Uh, and it'll get a little bit worse after April next year because Jupiter is going to go into Taurus, and that'll lock people in ideology. Okay, so I think over the next week, what we have to look forward to is sun, moon, maybe some light as opposed to heat being shared on ideas, maybe less righteous indignation, maybe more willingness to communicate. Um, And again, like I said, keep in mind the media wants to keep you excited. They want to keep you upset. They want to keep you scared. And again, I understand it's their job. It's a commercial enterprise. But I just don't like to be scared. I don't like it. It really screws up logical thought. Okay. All right, so enough of that lecture. And what we can expect for the world, again, more governmental disruption because the Jupiter Rahu conjunction aspected by Saturn. Um, Communications actually being a little better this week because of Mercury moving into Cancer and the Moon will move into Cancer along with Mercury, so we'll get some new bright ideas. Mars and Venus in the 12th house. Be careful about romantic relationships just in general because of this combination. So there'll be a tendency to be kind of um, expecting people to obey you because they love you or something like that, and that doesn't work either. Uh, but it should be a good week for some financial gains because Virgo is the first house I'm looking at. K2's in the second house, still somewhat bad for commerce. We have seen, at least in the United States, closing of a lot of retail operations. Um, and I think overall, we're going to see a large shift in commercial culture over the next couple of years, especially as the United States enters a Mercury subperiod. Um, so essentially, this is mixed a mixed bag in terms of earthquakes. Um, Again, there'll still be some tension in certain parts of the world. So certain parts of the world are both earthquake. We have flooding in Vermont, which is very rare in the United States. Um, but uh, but a lot of the problems with smoke are really connected with K2 in Libra and Venus with Mars. So we do still have a large potential for fires. So just be careful about it. When you go outside anywhere in the world, when you go outside and you're in a dry area, be extremely careful because they can start really, really quickly. Okay, so let's go on to the individual charts for you guys. Right now, Jupiter and Rahu. So a lot of these configurations don't change very much, especially the slower moving planets like Jupiter, Saturn, and Rahu and Ketu. So those are going to stay in that sign for a while, but Jupiter's in the first house. It's approaching which nakshatra is it in? It's in Bharani nakshatra. So this is where a lot of the deaths are coming from. Jupiter's in Bharani, so it's deaths connected with indirectly or directly with government actions. Um, I think a lot of the issues uh, connected with COVID are starting to come out a lot more over the past few months, and it's because of that Jupiter and Bharani placement. But let's get back to Aries itself. So Aries sign has um, Jupiter and Rahu in conjunction. That's not going to go away for another 3 months or so. So essentially, the Jupiter Rahu conjunction is good for um, expansion, good for contacts with people from foreign countries, good for travel. But again, it does encourage the sign to overspend just a little bit. And so there has to be some caution connected with that. Moon and Sun are in the third house, so there's a strong desire for happiness for children and home. Uh, Good communications at home overall. The signs probably relieved to see that. Um, some difficulties with children with Mars and Venus, essentially, so children can have more greed or more anger during this particular week. Venus will go retrograde, like I said, around July 22nd, and not July 27th, as I had originally said. So Venus is actually gaining in strength right now, not lessening in strength. And um, excuse me. And so this is all right. Okay. All right. So sorry about that, folks. And it should be a relatively prosperous week for Aries. Communications with relationship partners will still be a little bit strained because of K2 in the seventh house, Saturn in the 11th house. Again, slow gains, but keep on working at it. You'll see a big reversal in a few months. So just keep on working at it. and you'll actually see some big gains and actually relationship life uh, moving a little bit backwards and moving a little bit more towards the way things were. Uh, Taurus has Moon in the second house along with Sun, so that gives strong push to his desires. Again, a little bit too much expenses coming from uh, basically from spouse and friends, but basically not a bad placement. Um, but you'll be buying a lot of things you don't need, and spouse will too. So just be careful about that. Sun and Moon are in the second house, uh, as so that gives more attention to home life, more arguments with spouse, maybe about money. K2's in the sixth house. Again, you have to watch out for potential for accidents and health issues. Saturn's in the 10th house, very good for career for the sign. For Gemini, Gemini has um, Sun and Moon in the first house, so this will be a very strong month for Gemini, a very strong week for Gemini, but a strong month as well. And there'll be a lot of light shown on that particular sign, and his communications efforts will be very good. It'll bring some money in. Mars and Venus are placed in the third house. This is a good placement overall for the sign. It'll give it a lot of courage. It'll give it a lot of ambition. There will be reversals in relationships, though, over the next couple of months, maybe more arguments in relationships, but nothing that would break a relationship apart. Mercury's in the Mercury's the Lord of the fourth house, so there'll be a lot more attention on family matters and also some problems communicating with family members. Um, for sixth house, there's a lot of there's a lot of drama connected with cousins, with relatives, with siblings, because of the sixth house being aspected by Mars. So that's something to watch out for. And in terms of career and in terms of luck, this sign will be a little bit, it'll have good luck in terms of career, but it'll expect itself to be a little bit more perfect than it is. But there will be gains for the sign this month. They'll be short, but there will be gains. So financially, you should see some improvement starting for the sign over the next couple of weeks. For Cancer, Mercury's in the first house. Lord of the 12th is in the first. Lord of the third is in the first house. So that essentially gives recognition overseas or recognition in foreign countries. Mars sits along with Venus in the second house. So this sign will be very passionate, very aggressive, very it'll push very strongly in the direction it wants to move. K2's in the fourth house. So again, family problems are shown for this particular sign. But career life will experience unexpected bumps or unexpected improvements. And finally, as we get more towards the fifth house, not finally, but as we get towards the fifth house, a lot of money coming into kids, a lot of ambition coming for kids. Saturn's in the eighth house. This is commonly referred to as um, a re-examination of a person's life. So the person will start to seek out new spiritual directions, new um, um, it'll rebuild itself basically during this particular transit. And Jupiter sits in, so it'll actually maybe even reconsider relationship life, reconsider, and it'll focus more on career life. Um, so overall, not a bad week for Cancer. This moon is going to move to this sign by Tuesday at the latest. Sun will move to the sign by August by July 15th, excuse me. So it's only a few days. It's only about a day away. So I think you're going to see big changes for Cancer over the next few weeks. For Leo, Leo has Mars and Venus. As I said before, this is a special union making combination. Very good for career, very good for success in career. Um, but again, do expect some backsliding over the next couple of weeks because of the Venus retrograde. It really won't affect you all that dramatically, to be honest with you, but it will make you reconsider some of your desires or ambitions. K2's in the third house, and at least with K2 in the third house, you'll have a very strong drive, very strong push to succeed. Jupiter and Rahu in the ninth house, maybe a little bit shortcut, taking a few too many shortcuts in terms of career life. Saturn's in the seventh house. Relationship life is stable, but maybe relationship partner will want to revert back a little bit to the way things were before. And Moon and Sun are in the 11th house. Very good for financial gains for the sign. So good for career, good for financial gains. Some minor setbacks in career around the end of July, but nothing really significant. For Virgo Lagna or Virgo Rashi or Virgo Sun or Virgo Moon, K2's in the second house, so that can indicate a certain forgetfulness or a certain um, carelessness with money. Mars and Venus are in the 12th house, so again, be a little bit careful about expenditures. But this will actually, Venus retrograde will actually allow you to save money. So that's actually a good thing. You'll get unexpected financial gains. And Mercury as Lord of the first house in the 11th, again, is good for quick money input. And career life will actually do much better. Also, relationship partner will get better financial success and financial improvement. And Saturn aspecting that, although it will come with a lot of work. So the financial gains or unexpected windfalls will come, but it'll come with a lot of work. For Libra, Libra's had this problem of K2 in the first house. Now you see that little KO right there. I don't talk about these very much, but that's Kodanda. That's a Venus little planet, Upagraha. So these are calculated points in space in a Vedic chart. So that's like having a little Venus in the chart. Now this is actually sort of the more, it's both the more positive, it exaggerates the more positive attributes of Venus and the more negative attributes of Venus. So essentially, it's kind of a victory at all costs kind of a planet. But basically, or Upagraha, but basically it doesn't have the full strength of Venus. And K2 essentially tends to steal victories away at the last minute. So essentially what it'll do is it'll put a lot of ambition in the sign, and then all of a sudden the sign will go like, I'm just too tired today. I want to kick back and relax. So just keep that in mind as you feel this kind of like um, ambivalence about success. K2 actually draws attention to a sign, believe it or not. So sometimes you'll get contributions that are ignored or not paid attention to. But Venus in the 11th house will make sure that this sign gathers new friends. It gathers new allies. It gathers even potential relationship partners with Jupiter in the seventh house, and also potential business partners from different parts of the world. Okay. So this will actually present new business opportunities for the sign. They will involve a lot of work. They will involve some innovation. They will involve education for this sign. Okay. So it's not going to be easy, but if you want success, this particular week is a good time to start projects. It's a good time to start writing or planning out projects for, especially for Libra. It's the same is true for Virgo, but a little bit less so. And I think you'll see that a lot of projects that Venus that you start to do before Venus goes retrograde, you'll see will bear fruit. So that's before the 22nd. Okay. So start things up before the 22nd. You have a really great window of opportunity here. For Scorpio, Scorpio has, but again, don't get involved in romantic relationships. Business partnerships, yes. Romantic relationships are still a little bit dicey, um, unless you want to start them and wait and see how they develop after November or the end of November. Okay. Um, K2 for Scorpio rising, K2 is in the 12th house. It does give some possibility for savings because Codon is there. And also for this chart, there is some potential for financial luck because the Lord of the second house is in the sixth, but it'll give some financial luck with some effort and also it'll encourage you to look at your assets in the home. Moon and Sun are in the eighth house. I think this particular combination gives a potential for gains from a spouse. Mercury's in the ninth. Although Mercury's not a friendly planet for this particular rising sign, it does give good financial gains for it. So you'll actually see gains from career. And also, at least from this chart, excuse me, you'll also see increased financial success for Scorpio. So that's actually good. For Sagittarius, we have Saturn in the third house, so there's a lot of determination for this sign. And Jupiter's in the sixth house, so that should give increased financial gains, but through effort. Sun and Moon are in the seventh house, a lot of focus on relationship life. Mercury's in the eighth house, so that'll give a lot of good financial gains, and especially from spouse. Mars and Venus in the ninth house are actually a good combination for this chart, although it will give some opposition from bosses or from superiors and even from government. But unexpected gains of income and a lot of investigative work connected with work life. K2's in the 11th house. Again, don't trust friends. Capricorn is the first house, and Saturn's in the second house. At least from this particular combination, it's good for financial success, especially, but it will mean redoing some projects that you've done before. Jupiter's in the third house along with Rahu. That's a very good combination for luck, especially through November. And we have Moon and Sun in the sixth house, so there will be some opposition, some problems with bosses, but only short term. Those will go away within about within a couple of days. And Mercury's in the seventh house, so that should give good business contacts, possibly new business ventures. Mars and Venus, some problems with husband or wife during this particular transit. Not a good time to get romantically involved with this sign. And K2's in the 10th house, so a lot of work life will go on pretty much. There'll be like what I would call bumps or some people trying to disrupt work life, but they won't really particularly take. For Aquarius, one of my favorite signs, Saturn's in near the middle of the sign. Saturn's aspecting, so this is a Sash Yoga, so it gives authority or control or command to the sign. Jupiter's in the third house over, and it's aspected by Saturn. So again, a lot of determination to achieve goals. Moon and Sun are in the fifth house. Excuse me. So that gives some potential for relationship partnerships. But again, not really a good time to get involved with somebody you find really super attractive. Get to know them as a friend first and see if it has legs. But I would spend a few months. I wouldn't encourage a rapid relationship. K2's in the ninth house. Overall, unexpected turns in luck and some positive ones. Um, and again, especially if you aim at spiritual activities, K2 is really, really good. Okay, so you're not aiming for money, you're not aiming for fame. It'll come to you automatically. It's because Jupiter's aspect in K2. So again, not a bad week for Aquarius. Pisces has Rahu and Jupiter in the second house, and Moon and Sun are in the fourth house. So that's going to emphasize home life and home furnishings and taking care of home related goods. Mercury's in the fifth house. Children will be intelligent and likable. Good for relationships for the sign, actually. It's one of the first months I've seen which is good for relationships for Pisces. And K2's in the eighth house. So, again, a lot of interest in metaphysical subjects. Mars and Venus in the sixth house give good ability to overcome enemies, both through charm and through logic. And Saturn's in the 12th. So again, excuse me again for scratching. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm just really kind of a little bit itchy today. Saturn's in the 12th house and it's aspect in the second house. So at least from this combination, that does indicate some limitations on money. So that's it for the signs. Let's go ahead to the time and space chart. I don't have a lot of time because I went off for a couple of minutes, but I really don't trust the clock. All right. So where can we expect? So some governmental disruption may be in Hawaii. Um, Government scandals in California and also in looks like um, Oregon and Washington and even in Nevada. So we have this Jupiter line running down here. Um, and a lot of communications about it. So essentially, this part is between Jupiter and Rahu. That's why I'm saying that. Okay. We have a Venus line running through the Midwest. So we can expect some violence or some weather issues in the sign, some changes of leadership, especially between North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, down to uh, Texas, um, and maybe even into Mexico, okay, and even into Nicaragua. And we don't have any lines on the East Coast, so that looks generally placid, but I don't expect Congress to stop fighting, although they may because they might be in recess, I'm not sure. Venus and Saturn are approaching the West Coast, but actually, we'll probably see events play out that have happened over the past few months in this part of South America, but nothing new happened there. Sun and Moon, some shifts in government in Brazil, and some economic panic on the east coast of Brazil, all the way up to Iceland, and even down through the Azores and the Canaries. And Ireland Ireland, Portugal, and West Africa around Ghana, and down into um, down into the Ivory Coast. Some problems uh, with weather and even with violence. This actually goes all the way through to England, France, Spain, uh, Algeria. Oh boy! So this entire stretch of of land here. Venus, Mars, Saturn lines over here in Europe now really good. Uh, and let's see now. And what's this line? It's the Jupiter line. So again, some governmental scandals in Scotland. Maybe even hitting Norway. Let's see now. Let's focus on, but not a lot of lines passing through Turkey or um, Egypt or uh, Libya for that matter. Definitely a moon line passing through all the way down to through Zimbabwe and and South Africa, um, and also affecting Mozambique to a certain extent. So I think we can expect some economic problems there. Rahu, some scandals in Iran, some destabilization in Iran, Iraq, in Russia, and Ukraine. We're not getting really the whole story of what's happening in Ukraine, and I'm just going to say that again, just because Rahu clouds what we're hearing. Um, there's a moon line running over um, a moon and sun line running over close to Afghanistan, and Pakistan seems to have some problems coming up as well. India has a Mercury line running through it, which actually isn't bad. It's actually good for trade for me. So that's not a bad thing. Um, and there's also a Venus line, so we can expect some really intense rain activity in Bengal and Sri Lanka. And finally, as we go over to Venus, I'm afraid of running out of time. Venus and Mercury line are hitting Cambodia and Vietnam, and I think overall we're going to see some problems in China, some violence in China, um, and actually some scandals in Japan and Korea, and maybe even some threats of change of government in North Korea, which would be surprising. Australia's been going through some political upheaval lately, and that looks like it's not going to end soon. And finally, New Zealand has an ascending Jupiter line, so we do see a change in government in New Zealand. So that's it for this week. I hope I haven't run over. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching. And again, I hope I wasn't too preachy at the beginning, but I just really want to see us all get along. Okay. Bye bye, everyone. I love you all. And God bless you and have a great week.